They're not going to foul. The Heat will let it play out. It's over. At last, the long wait is over. After 47 years, the Denver Nuggets can finally call themselves NBA champions.
All right, hello everyone. Welcome back to Basketball in the Mountains. This is episode 17, and it's a solo episode today for me, kind of partially. In between games 2 and 3 for the Nuggets and the Clippers, series tied at 1 game apiece. After the 2 games here in Denver, series going to LA Thursday night. Recording this on Wednesday afternoon. Wanted to get this episode up for you guys as a way to just talk about what the series has been like so far. It's been everything I hoped it would be, and then some. Just kind of with the first 2 games here in Denver, overtime game 1, game 2 coming down to the wire. An all-time performance of Kawhi Leonard. I thought the series would go 7 games. I picked Nuggets in 7. Not feeling great about that pick after games 1 and 2, if I'm going to be honest, but sticking with my guns. Still going to go Nuggets in 7 because so much can happen in LA before the series comes back to Denver for game 5, which will be next Tuesday, which will be the next game I'm at in this series. Wasn't at game 1 because of the Colorado Spring game, but watched the whole thing while I was at Folsom Field in Boulder. Was sitting in Deion Sanders' press conference as watching overtime as that's all happening. And then I was obviously at game 2 on Monday night here in Denver for that just really classic game. Wrote about Kawhi Leonard after that game. For today's Denver Gazette, I wrote about Ivica Zubac again. I wrote about him before the series, if anybody remembers. And I just wanted to write about him again after game two because I've been really impressed with his effort so far in the series and what he's been able to do on both ends of the floor, really. I think this is maybe the toughest center one-on-one matchup. It's not obviously one-on-one the entire game. Really, for most parts of the games, it's not one-on-one between Nikola Jokic and Ivica Zubac, the 2 Balkan big men. But it is maybe the toughest someone has played Nikola Jokic I've seen, at least in a couple of years, in a one-on-one matchup in the post, in that just center battle. Anthony Davis has had big games offensively at times, but he really hasn't the last couple of years when he wasn't with the Lakers, but he really was never really up to the task defensively. The Lakers were constantly trying different things defensively to slow down Nikola Jokic, none of which really worked with the Nuggets winning those series, the last 2 series by a combined 8-1. So maybe this is since maybe the bubble in 2020 when Anthony Davis was a little bit, I think, slightly better than Nikola Jokic in that West Finals series in Disney World. But since then, there hasn't been a center that has matched up as well against Jokic, with what Zubac is doing in this series so far on both ends. Whether it's offensively, defensively, Zubac, the physicality down low has made Nikola Jokic put on that elbow sleeve during the game, which he said just wanted to give him a little bit more comfort. I think people were asking, obviously, because that elbow was something that kept him out of games at times during the regular season, and is probably something that's still bothering him a little bit, but he was gutting through it in that one. But I've just been impressed with Zubac, as whether it's as a scorer, he's such a weapon with James Harden in that pick and roll that is really dominant. Was really, really good in the first half of game 1. Clippers, I thought, got away from it a little bit in the second half, and maybe that led to some of the sloppiness, or could have helped prevent some of the sloppiness at the late in that game. But they got right back to it in game 2, and Zoo was really impressive in that game. He's looked really good as a passer out of the short roll too. He made a couple plays late in game 2 to find guys. I think he found Norm Powell for a layup, and then found Kawhi Leonard in wide open for a 3-pointer in the corner in one of them. And then him defensively as well. Like I said, the Clippers were never going to just leave him on an island against Jokic, even though I feel like Zoo might be the best person in the league right now that you could feel as good as possible about doing that. They're throwing all different kinds of schemes at Nikola Jokic just to keep him off balance, which makes sense in a playoff series like this. Both coaching staffs are doing that, which is pretty evident with the Nuggets coming out in zone, in a 2-3 zone in game 1, which I don't think worked at all, but they're still going to run with it a little bit just to throw things at the Clippers offense, because that is a well-oiled machine right now, which we saw in game 2 with how well Kawhi Leonard was playing. So But just getting back to Zubac quickly, his work defensively, not just in defending Jokic, but also on the glass as well. Nikola Jokic, something I wrote about in my story was he's only averaged 1.5 offensive rebounds per game through through the first 2 games, which would be the lowest of any playoff run throughout his career. Zoo is one of the best defensive rebounders in the league. Nikola Jokic is probably number 1, but if there's a close second, it might honestly be Zubac. I think he led the league in total rebounds in the regular season, if I'm not mistaken. But he had over 1,000 total rebounds in the regular season. So he's obviously an elite rebounder himself, and that has partially given the Nuggets problems. They have thrived in recent playoffs on second chance opportunities, with Jokic being really, really dominant on the glass. And that just hasn't been the case so far throughout these first 2 games. Let me just double check. Yeah, in game 1, Nuggets only got 9 second chance points, and then in game 2, they had 18, but it didn't feel like Nikola Jokic was getting a ton of offensive rebounds in the game. I think he ended up with 3. Michael Porter Jr. had a bunch. I thought he was really active on the glass in that game. He had 6 offensive rebounds of his 15 total rebounds in the game. That was super impressive to see him bounce back after a disappointing game 1 in which he got benched at the end of it for Russell Westbrook late in the fourth quarter and then in overtime as well. We'll see about Mike's health for game 3. David Adelman said today at media availability here in Denver before the Nuggets head to LA for game 3 that he expects Michael Porter Jr. to be able to go. I think MPJ told reporters in the locker room after game 2 that he had a joint sprain, he felt like, in his shoulder. It looked like it was obviously that play late in the game where he gets a defensive rebound and then tries to take it out and run with it. But Chris Dunn strips him from behind. He ends up getting trips up and falls over somebody and lands hard. It looked like on his right shoulder. Thought it might be a collarbone injury. So that is good to hear that it's not that for sure. And Mike's going to try to play through it because they need every bit of the top 6 guys. I think they could get a little bit. I think the Nuggets could get a little bit more out of Peyton Watson and Jalen Pickett as well off the bench, but they're going to play the top 6 guys, heavy minutes. MPJ played the fewest minutes at the starting lineup in game 2, but that was still 33.5 minutes. I think you'll see those numbers go up in LA with Joker playing 43 already, Jamal at 42. Like, they just need these guys to play that amount of minutes, and especially Aaron Gordon if they're going to need him to be the guy primarily on Kawhi Leonard after that incredible game 2 performance. In which he had 39 points on 15 of 19 shooting. First time since 2021 West Finals that he had that many points in a playoff game. He was obviously great in that series with, I think he had 45 and 41 in 2 of the games against the Mavericks that they, or not the West Finals, that would have been the West semifinals. I'm sorry. But since that series in 2021 when he eventually tore his ACL and got eliminated out of that series, I'm sorry, they won that series. So I'm completely wrong there, but that was the end. It was since that 2021 playoff run that he had that many points in the game, and he looked like Toronto Kawhi with just how much a machine he was in the mid-range and just really felt comfortable after a struggle. He struggled in game 1 with, I think he had 7 of the Clippers 20 turnovers, which was obviously the story of that game. The Clippers built a 15-point lead at one point, or multiple points in the second quarter. The Nuggets wound up cutting the lead to single digits by halftime, and then just whittled away, and were able to kind of steal it there. It felt like at the end of regulation, just to get it to overtime, and then get the win, obviously in OT. So just wanted to hit on a couple more things before I want to get to the video that my colleague Vinny Benedetto did and I on the court after game 2. I did this earlier in the season, in the regular season after the Lakers game, just kind of gave some of my thoughts before getting to a video that Vinny and I did. And then after the video, I want to give my All-NBA picks and my awards picks because I didn't get to do that before the start of the postseason. We had the Triple Header podcast, in case you missed it, with Vinny and Chris Schmedeke, 2 of my colleagues at the Denver Gazette, when we were just previewing this Clippers Nuggets series last week. So, one of the other things I wanted to hit on was Nikola Jokic in general, who had a triple-double in game 2 with 26, 11, and 10, but it felt like he was limited with his production and his impact. He had the 7 turnovers, kind of flipped the script from game 1, where Kawhi Leonard struggled, had 7 turnovers, and didn't look like himself. And Nikola Jokic in this one, despite putting up the triple-double, he's got 7 turnovers in game 2 and didn't really look all that comfortable late in the game. The big turnover, he had 2 big turnovers in the fourth quarter. One, he tried to throw a lob to Peyton Watson and just badly missed on the pass. And then when they were down 3, after Kawhi Leonard hits a mid-range jumper to put the Clippers up 3 with about 50 seconds left, on the ensuing possession, Nikola Jokic turns it over. Christian Brown, Russell Westbrook are just kind of wind up standing in the same spot. Kawhi Leonard rushes over, steals the ball, and that was kind of that for the Nuggets in game 2. And like I said, I think Zubac has done a good job, but in general, I think the Clippers had a pretty solid game plan for defending Nikola in game 2. He only took 16 shots. Jamal took 17 for the Nuggets, which to lead the team. And half of Joker's field goal attempts were at the 3-point line. And I wrote about this coming into the series and talked about it too. The points in the paint was going to be a big thing because the Nuggets had the best offense in the league coming into the series, or in the regular season, in terms of points scored in the paint. But the Clippers were a good defensive team in terms of limiting points in the paint. A lot of that has to do with Zubac, but their entire defensive structure is well oiled to keep teams out of the paint and not let them get good shots, which the Nuggets, as a team that struggled to shoot the ball from 3 all season, just didn't shoot the ball all that much from 3 during the season, one of the fewest 3-point attempts per game this season. That was going to be a big key in the series. And so far, it feels like the Clippers are winning that battle. So it'll be interesting to see what kind of adjustments are made for games 3 and 4 in LA, to see if the Nuggets just get better shooting from guys like Jamal Murray, who had a good game in game 2, shot 4 of 8. Same for Joker, same thing, 4 of 8. But Michael Porter Jr. only took 4 threes. Aaron Gordon only took 3. Russell Westbrook ended up taking 6, and he made 3 of them, made half of them. So it's not like the Nuggets are shooting poorly. They shot almost 44% in game 2 from 3 as a team, but they're not getting nearly enough up. It feels like just 32, and it feels like that needs to be that number needs to be up there against this Clippers team, who also aren't taking a ton of threes, but are kind of getting to the free throw line and things like that as well. So it's just going to be fascinating. Like I said, this series has lived up to everything I expected it to be so far. And I just think it might come down to Nikola Jokic versus Kawhi Leonard. We talked before the series in the preview about whose body holds up between Kawhi and Jamal Murray might decide the series, but I have no reason to believe that Kawhi Leonard won't be able to make it through the series at this point. He looks as healthy as he has been in years at this point throughout the first 2 games of this series. So I'm going to operate on the assumption that he is going to be able to make it through the series and be able to give the energy at least he needs to on a night-to-night basis. And it's the first time I feel like Nikola Jokic might not be the best player in a series in quite some time. That might even date back to probably 2021, maybe even the bubble, since I've felt that. Even when Jamal Murray was injured and they weren't able to make it very far in the 2021 and 2022 playoffs, I still felt like Nikola Jokic was the best player on the floor. And even last year during the Timberwolves series, there were games where Anthony Edwards was probably the best player on the floor, but it was that structure, that the way that the Timberwolves were built was really the reason the Nuggets were not able to get past Minnesota and into the West Finals. Nikola Jokic is still obviously the best player in that series. So, but Kawhi Leonard so far has been an even match for Nikola Jokic. Like I said, game 1 and game 2, the scripts kind of flipped in each of them, with Joker being the guy in game 1 and Kawhi being the guy in game 2. And that's going to be the storyline, I think, that's going to dominate the rest of the series, whether it's in LA for games 3 and 4 or when the series comes back for game 5. Like I said at the top, I'm not feeling too confident in my Nuggets in 7 pick. Still going to stick by it because, things can change really quickly in a playoff series. But I think this could be the first time where we look back on a playoffs, first time in a couple years where we look back on a playoff series and say Nikola Jokic was not the best player in that series. And Kawhi Leonard, if he plays like he did in game 2, once, maybe even twice more in the series, I think the Nuggets are in serious trouble, and they've got to find solutions for Kawhi Leonard, whether they try doubling him at times, and I think that's going to work a little bit because, like you saw in game 1, he still is capable of turning the ball over and making and giving the ball away, in key times in the game. Aaron Gordon is going to have to be the guy that's on him the majority of the game. We'll see if they mirror minutes. That's a tough ask for AG for 40 minutes to guard a guy like Kawhi. I thought he was not terrible at all. In game 2 and contested really well on a lot of the shots, whether it was him or whoever else was guarding him. Kawhi just made shots that we've seen Kawhi make time and time again. Really, really tough shots in the mid-range. That 3 he hit at the end of the first half made me almost fall out of my chair on press row. He hit it over 3 guys. That was just a crazy moment there. So I think it's going to be. I think the series is going to come down to Nikola Jokic versus Kawhi Leonard and who's the best player in the series, and that team will ultimately win it, because I still think it's a pretty good chance this series goes 7. It's been an epic series so far. I've enjoyed the heck out of it. I hope we get 7 games personally, so I could be there for that game 7 in Denver in about a week or so, a little bit over a week. So it'll be interesting, like I said, to see how games 3 and 4 shake out into a dome. Should be a fun environment. First playoff games there. That was a cool environment to see during the regular season, and now the playoff atmosphere gets to crank things up a little bit. So we'll see what that's like in LA. Should be really fun to watch. Vinny, my colleague, will be there for full coverage of that. So I'll get to the video now that Vinny and I did after game 2, excuse me, on the court, and then I'll come back with my NBA awards picks and my all NBA picks and my all rookie and all defense team, because I didn't get to that last week, like I said. And I just wanted to, obviously I don't have a ballot, but wanted to give my unofficial picks and just give my overall thoughts on my thinking on some of these awards. So here's that video, and then I'll be back in a couple minutes. Points for the Clippers star, who has not looked like this since probably before he tore his ACL in the 2021 West Finals. He had 2 40-point games in that series. He finishes with 39 points tonight. What was he? 15 of 19 from the field. He was 12 of 13 at one point. Just looked like that machine kind of mid-range scorer that we have come to know and appreciate as basketball fans the last decade or so. And this was one of the all-time Kawhi performances for sure, especially because of everything he's gone through the last couple of years. And the Clippers needed every bit of it tonight in a game that was it 105-102. The Clippers ended up beating the Nuggets here to give us a 1-1 tie going back to Los Angeles later this week. So just kind of, what's your overall reaction, sitting in a couple of hours after that game now, just kind of seeing what Kawhi was able to do in this one, and after the Nuggets made a pretty furious comeback to kind of steal a game in game 1, the Clippers now were able to kind of steal one where not everyone was at their best except for Kawhi, who was just one of those all-time performances. Just kind of, is this one that will stick with you for a while, you feel like?
Yeah, I've gotten pretty accustomed to seeing pretty incredible performances on this court, but
Pretty spoiled here.
But yeah, 5-10 years down the road, and someone asked about this Nuggets Clippers game 2 in 2025, and I'll remember it as the Kawhi Leonard game. And one thing I'm excited to kind of go back and rewatch is I want to see the breakdown between solid Nuggets defensive possessions on Kawhi buckets, or there was certainly, I remember there was 1-3 in that corner where they just lost him.
There weren't a lot of those, though. I feel like they did a good job against him, but it's Kawhi Leonard. He does that to people in the mid-range.
Yeah, he's going to get to his spots, and it felt like Aaron Gordon got hands up a lot of the time, but that was a clinic in tough shot making. And I think Aaron Gordon said it. You just got to tip your cap, shake his hand, and move on to game 3.
The story after game 1 was the Clippers turnovers. They had 20, leading to 29 Nuggets points. And tonight, the Nuggets were the ones who had 20 turnovers. I forget exactly how many points off turnovers.
21 for the Clippers.
21 points off turnovers for LA. Nikola Jokic had 7 of those himself. Felt like, there are a lot of guys taking blame in the locker room after this one, but Nikola as well was just describing some of the silly passes. He felt like he made Kawhi get the steal. I think when they're up 3 in the final minute, he tried to throw a lob to Peyton Watson at one point that was just nowhere close. So he was kind of taking responsibility for some of this as well. It's kind of, what did you feel like the Nuggets got away from offensively down the stretch there? The Jamal Joker 2-man game was working really well, it felt like, for large chunks of this game. Michael Porter Jr. was really active and engaged and hit some big shots in this game, but it just felt like at the end, the Nuggets kind of lost their identity in those last couple minutes offensively.
Yeah, and it felt like there were just multiple instances where they just kind of got a little bit frazzled. I think one of Joker's turnovers, and maybe it was even the late one, I think Christian Brown and somebody else were standing like in the exact same.
Yeah,
they were standing very closely together. So I think spacing certainly could have been better at times. And there were just a few like weird communication issues. Like Nikola Jokic was talking about one, he grabbed an offensive rebound. Jamal Murray was motioning to like slow it down.
Yeah.
And Joker thought Jamal was motioning like shoot it.
As if the shot clock did not reset, but it did. Yeah.
So Joker took like an off balance shot with 10 or 11 seconds left on the shot clock. So it just feels like the details got away from the Nuggets in a couple really costly instances.
Yeah, and now there's a lot to look ahead to as both teams have a couple days off here before Game 3, which is Thursday night in Los Angeles. Michael Porter Jr. said after the game that he thinks he has a joint sprain. He took a hard fall after he grabbed a defensive rebound, but Chris Dunn comes from behind and pokes it free, and MPJ takes a spill there. And it looked like, from my vantage point, that it was a collarbone injury or some kind because he stayed down on the ground. The ball gets swung to Norm Powell for a wide open three, which I think gave the Clippers a 103-100 lead there very late. But MPJ's status going forward seems to be up in the air. We're not sure about the brace for his drop foot that could also come into play. So, I mean, if the Nuggets, Jamal Murray is sick, but he's not making excuses about that. And Nikola Jokic put the elbow sleeve on at one point during the game, which he said was just to give him some more comfort with all the banging and down he's doing with Zubac in the post. But I mean, Kawhi Leonard has managed to stay healthy so far this series. I mean, just kind of, what are these next two games in LA going to be like, just from a gutting it out and who's healthy standpoint for both these squads? Because it has been a war so far in the series.
Yeah,
it's been a grind.
Through two games here, like, this thing is going to be decided by the margins. And if you're a Nuggets fan, I don't think there should be any real concern about Nikola's elbow. But yeah, Mike's shoulder would be the top of my concerns right now because he bounced back with a 15-point, 15-rebound performance tonight.
He was really active and engaged, and it seemed like he was all over the place trying to make an impact in this one.
And I think 6 of those rebounds came on the offensive glass, and that to me indicates the level of buy-in and intensity and focus that David Adelman was looking for. And especially in this series, the way the Clippers have done a really nice job of mixing up their looks against Jokic defensively. Zubac has done a really nice job one-on-one at times. Other times they're sending 3 or 4 guys. And one thing David Adelman mentioned post-game was just kind of the need for that spacing to be better so that Joker can attract a crowd and kick out. And when you're thinking about guys who can make teams pay for sending multiple defenders at Joker, Mike tops the list in terms of catch and shoot guys. So if you're a Nuggets fan, you're hoping these next 48 hours are very restful and full of recovery for Mike.
The biggest adjustments in a series are always made between games 2 and 3 as the series shifts from one location to another. Ty Lue post game was very, very complimentary of David Adelman and kind of everything that the Nuggets have drawn up so far. What are you looking at in terms of how the Nuggets can improve things, especially offensively in this series? Like you said, they're getting a lot thrown at them in terms of how the Clippers are guarding Nikola Jokic. It felt like Jamal Murray got in a pretty good groove tonight at times. Russell Westbrook knocked down some shots. Not really much from anybody else. I think Aaron Gordon hit one corner three, if I remember. That was in the first half. But it feels like they could do more to get him going. I do vividly remember the first play of the second half was one of those Joker AG inverted pick and rolls where he gets a lob. We've seen that play countless times the last couple of years. Do you feel like the Nuggets have to be able to get more out of the non-Joker and Jamal guys offensively right now? And is there a way you feel like the coaching staff could do that at this point?
Yeah, I think your mention of getting more out of Aaron is a good call, or at least getting him more involved in ways that force. It feels like Kawhi Leonard's been guarding him and Mike, primarily Mike.
A little bit on Jamal too, but mostly those two guys. Yeah.
So I would just, not that you're going to necessarily be able to tire Kawhi out, but just make sure he's really working on both ends. Because tonight it didn't. I'm trying to find the way to put it. It didn't look easy for him.
Yeah.
But it also looked easy, if that makes any sort of sense. I would just see if there's a way to make him run through screens. Make him, if he's on Mike, make Mike run from corner to corner and make, Kawhi chase him around a baseline screen or two. I would just see if there are other ways to get, more out of the third and fourth options.
All right, that'll do it from Vinny and I here from Ball Arena. You can look for all of our coverage. All right, so that was the video that Vinny and I did at Ball Arena after Game 2 on the court. Just wanted to include some of Vinny's thoughts from after the game because this is a solo episode for me here. It kind of sums up how I was feeling after game 2 as well, going into game 3. Like I said many times already on this podcast, just super fascinated to see how this series evolves in LA before it comes back to Denver for game 5. I would be not surprised, but I think it's going to be 2-2 coming back here to Denver. I still think we're in for a grind of a series, and that game 5, I think here in Denver, could be the one that ultimately decides who wins the series, because I do think the teams are going to keep adjusting. And like I said a couple minutes ago before the video we ran, I do think this series is going to come down to Nikola Jokic versus Kawhi Leonard and who is the best player in this series, because I think it could be either of these guys at this point, with just the way Kawhi is playing, and we've seen him lead a team to a title all by himself before. And this, like I said, certainly seems like he looks the best he has physically, and just from how he looks in a game since maybe 2021 in that playoff run. So before I sign off here, I did want to hit my NBA awards. Like I said, wasn't able to do that last week, so I just wanted to give my quick rundown of who I've got for my awards. I will start with my all NBA. I'll start with all defense, actually. First team, I've got Dyson Daniels, Lou Dort, Amin Thompson, Ivica Zubac, and Evan Mobley from Cleveland. And obviously, that'll kind of give away my Defensive Player of the Year ballot as well, which I'll spoil here. I have Evan Mobley as my Defensive Player of the Year, with Lou Dort and Ivica Zubac in second and third, respectively, on that ballot. Just really was impressed with what Mobley did this season. This obviously would have been Victor Wembanyama's award to lose before he has the blood clot issue that makes him ineligible for this award with the games played thing. And I wanted to honor the Thunder season in many ways on this, which you'll spoiler alert, which will come up a lot, obviously. And Lou Dort, I feel like, is the most impactful defender, despite I think that OKC's team defense is the star of the show there. And then Zubac as well has just been so impressive. I've talked about him already a lot on this podcast, so won't get into that too more. Second team all defense, I have Andrew Nembhard, Jalen Williams, from J-Dub from OKC, Tamani Kamara, who I was super impressed with from Portland all year long. They had a pretty solid season. Chauncey Billups there feels like he's got that team on the right path. And then I've got Draymond Green and Jaren Jackson Jr. Both those guys could easily been first team, but it was a loaded class this year. And I do like to get to reward the perimeter defenders on my first team all defense, even if I don't really consider them for Defensive Player of the Year as heavily as some people. I think that's just, for me, it's always going to be a big guy with the way the game is played. But like I said, did consider Dort pretty heavily, maybe more than I have in recent years for a perimeter defender. But and I wouldn't begrudge anybody for putting Draymond and Jaren Jackson Jr. on first team all defense. Both those guys had really strong cases, but just wound up on second team all defense for me. So getting into my all rookie teams. My first team all rookie is Steph Castle, Jalen Wells, Zachary Richardson, Matas Buzelis, and Kel'el Ware from the Heat. So getting into my rookie of the year ballot as well. I did end up with Steph Castle as my rookie of the year. Part of me wanted to put Jalen Wells on there. And I probably would have gone with Jalen Wells if the Grizzlies were able to get a top 6 seed in the Western Conference. But just with the way they played the last month or so, obviously a really weird rookie class this season. The award was Jared McCain's to lose up until he suffered his season-ending meniscus injury in December. I still think he's probably my favorite guy from this class so far. I'm not as high on Steph Castle as some other people are, but just with the season he had, I felt like he deserved this award and probably a down year for rookies. Although Richardson, who I did not end up second on my ballot, gave a really strong push at the end of the year. And I think the Hawks are probably feeling pretty good about that number 1 overall pick from last year at this time. And Jalen Wells ended up being third, on my rookie of the year ballot. And then Matas Buzelis and Kel'el Ware, two of just my favorite guys to watch throughout the season from this rookie class. Buzelis came on strong at the end when the Bulls made a pretty strong push, obviously ultimately losing the planned game to Kel'el Ware and the Heat, who I just liked all year round. I do think he's got some really high potential and maybe one of the higher ceilings in this class. I think he's going to be a solid player for a really long time. Second team all rookie, I got 2 Wizards, Bub Carrington and Alex Sarr. There's going to be a lot of bigs on this list. I'm sorry. Just kind of the way the rookie class shook out. And with, like I said, with Jared McCain's injury, and then some guys like Dalton Knecht not having as much of an impact as maybe I would have expected. A lot of big guys on my second team here. So Bub Carrington, Alex Sarr from the Wizards, Kyle Filipowski from the Jazz. Could have went Isaiah Collier here for the Jazz as well, but I was just a little bit more impressed with Filipowski and feel a little bit more strongly about his upside long term as well. And then Donovan Clingan from Portland and Zach Edey also from Memphis. Round out my second team, all rookie team. Not too much to get into there. So then I'll get into some of the other awards before getting into All NBA and MVP. Most improved player, I've got Ivica Zubac. I've obviously talked about him a ton. Then I've got Austin Reeves, second, made a really strong push for me. Was surprised he wasn't a finalist for this award. I did not have Cade Cunningham on my ballot just because, spoiler alert, he's on my All-NBA team, but he's only in year 4. He's in year 4 in the league, and I've expected Cade to be this good, to be honest with you. So maybe that's a little bit naive of me not to put Cade on my most improved ballot because he has made a huge jump this year. But I was always a big Cade guy, even in that 21 draft, and I expected him to be, an All NBA caliber guard, and that's what he was this season for me. So Austin Reeves second, and then Dyson Daniels third, who if the Pelicans weren't such a disaster, might have been another guy I considered for Defensive Player of the Year, but is definitely shown a lot. And I think that trade that the Hawks made, getting off of DeJounte Murray last offseason, getting Dyson Daniels and some picks back, I think was a really, really good deal for Atlanta. And Daniels is a guy they can certainly count on as a building piece, a piece to build on for the future, along with guys like Risa Shea, who I mentioned, and Onyeka Okongwu, who I've liked for a while as well. So going to get into Coach of the Year as well. Kenny Atkinson was my guy. Kind of a no-brainer there with what he did with Cleveland this year, taking things over. Although JB Bickerstaff, who got fired from Cleveland and wound up in Detroit, also nearly made my ballot. Did not, as I had Ime Udoka second for Houston. Just super impressed with what he did this year. Getting that young Rockets team to the 2 seed. We'll see how their series goes against a very veteran and talented Golden State team in round 1. I did pick the Warriors to win that series, but the Rockets still had a very impressive regular season led by Ime, and I think they're only trending upward going forward. Then I end up with Mark Daigneault third, just because they won 68 games. Like, I don't know what you want me to say. Like, yes, the Thunder are very, very talented and deep, but I think Daigneault plays a huge role in that, and 68 games is just a lot of games to win, and they had the best net rating in NBA history. Like, I just think that needs to be recognized. So without further ado, MVP. I went with Shai Gilgeous-Alexander. I'm sorry, Nuggets fans that are listening to this podcast. Yes, we talk about the Nuggets a lot. I'm around the Nuggets a lot, and I go to a lot of games. Nikola Jokic had an incredible season, one of the best offensive seasons in NBA history. But I went with SGA. I don't think it was. I have heard the best player in the league argument for this award. Well, LeBron was the best player in the league for over a decade, and he does not have 10 plus MVPs. Nikola Jokic has been the best player the last 5 years, and at least the last 5 years in the league, and has 3 MVPs. I think that's perfectly apt. And I think, like I said, 68 wins. And I don't think the Thunder are so deep that SGA doesn't warrant winning this award. Like, I do think he makes them even better. Like, I think they're probably a 50 plus win team without him, just with J-Dub, and if Chet's maybe healthier for longer in the season. They've got other really good guys I like, which I've talked about a lot, with Cason Wallace and Caruso and Hartenstein, all these guys. I just think SGA has had an incredible scoring season for a guard, one of the best since Michael Jordan for a guard. And I just wanted to reward him for the MVP. I thought he was the best player. I thought he had the best season in the league this year. So we'll get into my ballot. I had Jokic second, obviously. Giannis third. Jason Tatum fourth. And then Donovan Mitchell fourth. Which, spoiler alert, that's my first team All-NBA as well. So no surprise there. Get into my second team All-NBA. I had Steph Curry, Jalen Brunson, Ant Edwards, LeBron, and Evan Mobley as my second team. Not a ton to get into there. Steph made a late push, bumped James Harden and Cade Cunningham to third team for me. Ant was the only other guy I maybe would have considered for first team, but with how good Cleveland was in the regular season, I wanted to get one of their guys on there, and I felt like Donovan Mitchell was the guy there. So wrapping things up with my third team, I already mentioned Harden and Cade, J-Dub, as well for the Thunder. Wanted to get a second Thunder guy in there as well, and Chet just didn't play enough. If Chet played more games this season, he would have been in Defensive Player of the Year conversation for me, and probably third-team All-NBA. And rounding things out, I went with Karl-Anthony Towns and Ivica Zubac. Just really, really, really impressed with what Zoo did this season. You could have went with Jaren Jackson Jr. there. That was probably the first guy who did not make my All-NBA teams, but just with the way the Grizzlies closed the season the last 6 weeks or so, I went with Zubac there. So that'll do it from this episode of Basketball in the Mountains. Thanks, everyone, for listening. Thanks to Vinny for doing the video with me on the court after the game. We'll have another episode next week recapping games 3 and 4 after Vinny gets back from LA probably. And then I'll get back into some more college stuff, getting into the teams that we like to talk about in this podcast. And the transfer portal stuff is finally starting to fizzle out a little bit. It's closed now, so guys will still be visiting and committing places, but nobody can enter in anymore. So that rosters will start to take shape over the next couple weeks, and we'll be all over that. So thanks everybody for listening. As always, be sure to subscribe on Apple or Spotify or to my YouTube page if you prefer to watch all these episodes. Leave a comment, like, rate, review, subscribe, all that stuff is super helpful and appreciated by me. So thanks again, and enjoy the weekend of basketball.